You will never be enlightened. Good Lord. That is the video we are looking at today. It's done by Nanak Naam. Yeah, I'm looking at the first image here, and he looks really like not happy about it. Let's see.
The fantastic thing about enlightenment is that you can never know that you're enlightened. And you can never say that you are enlightened, because in order to say that you're enlightened, you say, I am enlightened. And I am is the temporary self. The temporary self can never be enlightened. So it is always the non-I am that is the enlightened. And that within the Gurmat tradition has been referenced as you, the bigger you with a capital Y, the greater you, the oneness. So all the language of positivity has been attributed to this oneness, that you are the enlightened and I am the non-enlightened. And people have read Gurbani and used the wisdom to create a duality, saying there is the I am, there is me, and then there is a God somewhere else.
So that I amness, that enlightened, I amness, that is more identified with the big picture and everything, or is fully identified with reality itself, rather than, imagine your baby finger being like, I'm the enlightened one, I'm everything. It's like you're part of a body finger. Take it easy. But I was just thinking, so wouldn't an individual that is enlightened, people are looking at it and it's like, wow, that guy's really got it. He's really at one with the universe. Wouldn't that look different depending on the context? Like, imagine a giant hellish battlefield. What's an enlightened guy doing there? Is he swinging an axe with like full glory? It depends on the situation you're in, because what are you're gonna take issue with a volcano? You're gonna take issue with a tidal wave? That's coming from nature. It's violent and chaotic. Yeah. So if the world around you is violent and chaotic, are there just times where it just so happens that, like, if you're going to get into the flow of that, grab an axe, bruh? And, I'm seriously asking this. I know it's a silly question, but, like, what of that?
To let yourself be carried away by just what is and be swept away by it and not, trying to like dissect it as it's happening. Like, hey, just
say you're in a Christian family. Say you're in a Christian family. You could take on some smart ass role where you're like, did Jesus really walk on water? Like mother, father, contesting the family's beliefs. Would it not be more enlightened to be like, I did all my chores and I went along with it, Yeah. Or just what does it mean? What does it mean to be fully immersed in reality, effectively, enlightenedly? The only thing we know about it is that you can't say you're it.
Yeah. Sometimes when we talk about it, I feel like humans are the only thing in existence that isn't enlightened. Everything else knows exactly what the hell it's doing. We're the ones who are questioning everything, looking under every rock, while they're just doing their thing.
I love thinking about that. I love thinking of like whales and everything like that being like, they're really consumed by this like intelligence thing. What the heck, man? Like, don't they see that they're just endlessly building things and advancing? You know what else advances? Some bad things advance. And are progressive and spread. What if we took back and we were just like, oh, it's okay, I'm just gonna step into my role. But then again, it reverses it on itself, and then stepping into your role might just be taking part in the dysfunctional society you're in. In the greater picture, is it really dysfunctional?
It's quite the pickle.
So we even have shabads like Ham papi tu pap khandan. Madho ham aise tu aisa. I'm like this and you're like that. I'm the sinner, you're the destroyer of sin. I'm good and you are bad. And people have used this to try and convince us that this is a very dualistic system. We're a monotheistic religion. There is us, the sinners, and then there is God, the enlightener. But
I am hot looking at his hat. I'm getting hot thinking about wearing a hat. What am I going to do? What happens if I got to wear a hat sometime? It's too hot, man. You just the sweaty guy? Like if you're part of a group of people that's the appropriate attire.
Side note here.
Yeah. But if that's the appropriate attire, what do you do if you're hot?
Yeah. Well,
you get it together and act like a man, damn it.
Hopefully he's in an air-conditioned room.
Yeah, I guess, you know.
I don't understand it in that way. To me, what that is saying is when I am in the state of me, when I am in my own individuality, that is the sin that I am in. And when I'm in the state of non-individuality, when I'm in my connected universal self, that is when I am in this state of non-sin. So the sin is being in your ego, in your own identity. The non-sin, the escape from sin, the escape from disease, from trouble, is being in this nonsense of self. But as soon as you're in the nonsense of self, you can't attribute that to your individual self. So
can't say nonsense of self without saying nonsense. I'm just kidding. But if you think about it, you know, how much sense are we really talking about here?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
You cannot say I am enlightened. So the gurus never said that I am the messenger of God, I am the son of God. If you want to know God, you have to come through me. None of that language exists because they understood that the me is the individual. Now, this is not to say that if Christ said those things, that Christ was wrong. I don't believe that. I believe Christ was an absolutely enlightened being, no greater or lesser than anyone else. But Christ, if that is the word that Christ used, and I think that's a big if, because I don't believe that the modern versions of the Bible represent exactly what the language is that was used in the original Bible, and we don't actually have anything that Christ wrote down himself. So if that was what Jesus had said, then he was not wrong in saying that, because he was not talking from his individual self. He's talking from his connected self.
What does that mean? Not talking from your individual self. I always feel like I'm talking from me. You know, the animator from within is a deeply broken and neurotic person, and that's usually who's center stage when I'm talking.
Yeah. Well, I think he's talking about kind of that Christ consciousness state, where that, like, what we were talking about before, where he's not absorbed or trapped by his ego, that he is in full identification with all of reality.
Remember those old like when you had dial-up internet? Like, wouldn't it be like, like, why would it come out as human language if it's like you're identified with the infinite?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you talk about things in terms of human?
Of anything.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
By the way, it's also fun to see another guy scramble to like talk about these things that are super paradoxical. You know, I struggle all the time trying to like communicate some of this stuff, but
they're tough conversations, man.
He's like, I really think Jesus was enlightened, no greater or better than anybody else. Wait a second. No greater or lesser than anybody. That's just a normal person then. That reverses back to being not a big deal. You know? Anyway.
Come to me. Come through me. I will give you the answer. I am the way. That's not to say I, me, the individual. It is to say that I have found the technique to lose this I and connect with this God. This God who is in heaven, but heaven, I think, was part of him. I am in the kingdom of my Father. So I think Christ, if he used those words, was not wrong in using those words. It was just his way of explaining it. But the gurus have used a very different technique. They never attributed or spoke about their own enlightenment. What they
I feel like the very first guy that turned me on to anything enlightenment skipped town with a briefcase full of money. Like, you know who I'm talking about. The person that got me into this, it's like, if you listen to this stuff long enough, it's like, I got to be honest. Some of it feels like it just reverses back into just do what interests you. Just be your authentic self, which is a little egoic. Yeah. You know? And then the people that like first got me into this is like nowhere to be found now. I'm like, wait a sec. You know, if you listen to any of these guys long enough, it becomes a little paradoxical.
Well, I've also heard in like the spiritual circles is that it's almost like you can be a detriment the more you study spirituality. It can act as a hindrance towards your actual growth.
What the proof?
Like we're
according to who? The people you're trying to control? Hang on, don't read this chapter. You know,
I've heard from other spiritual teachers that have said that they were like, you can study this stuff till the cows come home, but unless you actually just like go off and, you know, go into monk mode somewhere.
I find it suspicious that none of the gurus talk about each other. They don't get together. Like, how come we never saw, you know, at least I haven't. Somebody correct me. I'd love to know it if I'm wrong. But I've never seen, like, Sadhguru and Eckhart Tolle hanging out. In fact, sometimes...
They should have a guru convention where it's like you get this guy and Sadhguru and Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira and Teal Swan. Get them all in the same room. What would happen?
Well, the reality is, I may have heard Teal Swan say something positive about Eckhart Tolle. I don't know. Yeah. But I do get the vibe sometimes that they talk shit about each other. That they're like, he's not the real one. And that, to me, is like, fuck it. I'm the guru then. You know, if that's a hint of that, you know, I gotta listen to you. I can't study too hard. I can't use my logic and rationale too much. Just stop being so logical. Like an idiot sheep. Follow what I say. I'm going to be my own guru then. I invite you to do that too. Think for yourself.
Let's let Nanak close it out here.
What I've said was that I've experienced something and I know it to be an absolute truth. It is an absolute truth regardless of whether you know it or not. We have varnish from the Bhagavas and verses from the other saints who have said that I don't care if anybody can see this or not. I'm telling you this is an absolute fact. But again, it's not about their own individuality. It's not about their enlightenment. But it is about the truth that they have known and seen and are just desperate to share with as many people as possible.
Have you ever been desperate to share a truth with other people? I want to know for real. Have you ever been like, I'm just so brilliant. It's the good news.
Oh, yes. I've never. And it's never received ever well. It's always...
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's never... so now I just shut up. But
it's so confusing. I was probably like having an enlightenment experience when I was in my 20s at one point. I remember trying to point something out to my friend. I was like, look at that tree. It exists even when we're not looking at it. And they were like so weirded out, and I was like, never again.
Yeah.
Now I do it all the time.
Well, to conclude that video, I think that was the gist of the message was there, is that who's the one saying I am enlightened when really, you know, it's just the all-seeing eyes.
Feels like a better thing would be to be like, yeah, I'm enlightened, and everybody go, oh, and then you go, but the good news is you are too. You're all enlightened. Because everything's enlightened all the time. Like, isn't that kind of, in a way, true?
I've heard it put that way before.
Everything is both enlightened and completely ignorant and not enlightened.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
Lots to chew on, guys. Lots to chew on. Hopefully you guys liked our reaction to this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone, until next time, stay spiritual.